So wonderful. Namaste. Welcome to Satsang today. So there's been, as always, a topic that's come up a lot this week from questions from the Sangha and classes that have been running in the graduate program and things like that. And this topic is something that really is fundamental to our awakening. So I wanted to try to clarify and demystify the process of awakening, because it wasn't clear to me just how linked or synonymous awakening is with meditation. And it came up again, been writing a commentary on the Upanishads for the graduate program community that we have. And in one of those Upanishads, there's a reference as well to meditation being the same as awakening as the self. So, and the meditation that we're following, at least in these teachings, is perhaps like any authentic spiritual teaching. It's extraordinarily simple. And because of that, it can be quite challenging to assimilate. Paradoxically, the simpler something is, the harder it can be to accept and act upon, because our egoic sense of self, our someoneness, the illusionary part of us that doesn't exist, is usually looking for complexity and values complexity and wants to try to prove its might or strength or worthiness or something by overcoming something difficult. And because of that, it's worthwhile taking another look at meditation and following it all the way to the end, to the end point of meditation, really. And we're going to do that as well because there's this 30-day challenge going across the Sangha at the moment to do this zooming out meditation. And we'll practice that a little bit later. But I just want to clear up perhaps some misnomers about meditation and hopefully make it simpler. So meditation works hand in hand with contemplation. There are two oars on the same boat. If you row with one oar, you go around in circles. If you row with the other oar, you go around in circles. If you row with both oars, you're going to move forward quite fast. So meditation is focusing on what is real, bringing attention to what is actually here. And that is the one infinite being, by whichever name we're going to call it. So we could call it awareness, we could call it consciousness, silence, beingness, presence, I amness. This stillness, we could call it, we could notice it first by the sense of subjectivity of our own inherent formlessness. We could notice it by feeling our presence rather than our absence. Whichever name we're using for it, we could also call it emptiness, nothingness, Buddha nature, Parabrahman, supreme being, whichever you feel comfortable with. It is the only thing that exists. And strangely enough, human beings have the capacity to imagine that we're not what we think we are. We have the capacity to imagine that we are separate from everyone and everything else. So as we do this, we create an illusionary sense of self, of someone that we think is moving towards goals in life, and perhaps most especially here in awakening, in Satsang, moving towards awakening. And that sense of someoneness can become so real, seemingly, because we give it our belief, our validity as the infinite self. We have infinite power to, or we are infinite power to delude ourselves. So meditation is the act, the practice, the art, the science, the skill of bringing attention back to what is real. So listening to silence, or noticing the stillness, or being the beingness, or being aware of awareness. Noticing that our habit is simply to be aware of what we're aware of, such as thoughts, feelings, experiences, memories, desires, dreams, all of those things. Basically, to be aware of phenomena, the moving and changing, the coming and going, that which is not permanent. And really, if we simplify it even more, the only phenomena that we tend to actually have an issue with, that tend to magnetically draw attention as if we have no choice, are the thoughts. And even if we look at, yes, but I don't like physical pain, or I don't like feeling fear or shame, or I don't like a sensation that's going on, it's really, attention is really, awareness is going to the thoughts about the physical pain, the the thoughts about the emotion that we're feeling, rather than the actual emotion itself. And that might seem incredible, that actually what's bothering me about physical pain is what I think about the pain, rather than pain itself. But if you really investigate that, you have to do that to prove it to yourself. And we've all had experiences where some negative emotion or some physical pain didn't really bother us that much. And we know that pain medication and anesthetic and things like that, that's one of the things they do. They stop us from being able to think about it. Don't actually get rid of the pain. So the awakened state or condition is really where attention is staying on what's real, continuously, 24/7, effortlessly. It's just become so habitual to bring attention back to awareness. I'm aware of awareness rather than aware of thoughts. And so that I'm listening to silence more than I'm listening to thoughts. It doesn't mean we've gotten rid of thoughts. It just means that we notice the thoughts, and then we notice that we're noticing those thoughts. And we give more time and airspace to the awareness rather than what we're aware of, or to the silence rather than what we're hearing in the silence, what we're listening to. It's more attention to that which is not a thing, by whichever name we're calling it, than the thingness that's coming and going. And how we actually do that then is we notice there's awareness present, and we bring attention to it. Right now, awareness is present, otherwise you wouldn't be able to notice what your senses are taking in. It is taking a vibration, but it's you that says what that vibration is and what it means. So there's a habit for attention to go to thoughts over and over again. How do we get from my attention just automatically moves to thoughts? Whenever mind speaks, my attention goes to it, and I lose the focus on the awareness, on the spaciousness, on the contextual field that's the background of all of our experience, silence, the stillness. Well, as we bring more attention to what is real, we begin to see that what we think about everything is unreal. In that seeing this is unreal, we have less and less interest going to these. And as we've got less interest going to these, we're more in love with what is real. And as we're more in love with what is real, we're more able to see what's unreal. As we're more able to see what's unreal, we fall more in love with what is real. And thought by thought, or karmic pattern by karmic pattern, we begin to unhook attention from the thoughts, and it comes back to the stillness. And we all, as human beings, have an assumption that we believe that has never been true, and that is that when my mind speaks, I have to pay attention to it. And this habit is so, this assumption is so prevalent among the whole of human consciousness. And yet really the awakened state is just to simply be that space, awareness, consciousness, presence, in which mind is just spewing out thoughts ad infinitum. And you're like this, you're open, you're just being the awareness that's watching, but not watching anything in particular. So we'll do some zooming out in a moment just to really illustrate this. In meditation, what we're trying to do is bringing attention, unhooking it from this idea that it has to move when mind talks. And as we see that mind, with greatest respect to mind, it's a beautiful tool for navigating around the world of phenomena, but it's absolutely useless when it comes to telling you about who you really are. It's a thought machine. It doesn't have any sentience of its own. Why does attention go to thoughts? Because somehow on some level we feel that they're valuable, that they can help us in our quest to awaken. What if that's not actually true? What if mind can only think about things, not actually experience them? And again, I'm not against thought. There are some very useful, beneficial thoughts. We just want to pull away from this habit of automatically, habitually reflex awareness going to look at this thought. So awareness is just being aware. And then a thought pops up in the mind and awareness goes, I need to look at that. And it contracts down to look at something, begins to pay attention to something, to a thing, a thought. And then that's why we suffer, because of this closing from this openness down around an object. And if we look at objects in the room that we're in, we probably don't have many strong opinions about the furniture in the room. So we don't have this contraction. If we were to look at our awakening or our finances, our career, or our significant relationship, we have many thoughts about that. And those thoughts seem important. So attention goes like this, awareness. I'm using those synonymously. So we need to prove to ourselves that when a phenomenon arises like a thought, that we don't have to automatically pay attention to it. Just like right now, as you're listening to these words, there's other sounds in the background that you're hearing automatically anyway, and you're not paying attention to them specifically. You don't have to be listening to something to hear it. You can just be listening. So you're just being aware when you're looking through the eyes. You're just listening when you're using the ears, the senses. You don't have to be listening to anything in particular. So if you just try it now, if you just listen, you don't listen to these words, you just listen openly. I'm just listening. You'll still hear these words and you'll still understand what they mean. And you'll hear everything in your experience. And you won't miss out on any part of experience, but you won't feel so contracted. You won't automatically go to listen to thoughts when you're listening to nothing in particular, or you're listening to everything all at once, or you're just listening, whichever one of those feels most natural. So you still know what I'm saying, and you're still getting the meaning of that. You're just not closing around trying to get something or get somewhere. You're not paying attention to the phenomena of my words. You're just listening. And in doing this, you see that you can function like this your whole life. We've had this specialness, we're given this specialness to objects, phenomena of thoughts, because we thought that they were really beneficial and helpful. But can we come to treat thoughts just like any other phenomenon? If a bird sings in the background as I'm talking, you don't suddenly have to pay attention to it, do you? You might notice it, and it's okay, and it's pleasant. You don't have to immediately zoom in involuntarily to that sound. What if thoughts were just another sound, coming and going inside. So let's do some zooming in and zooming out here now, and we'll unhook our attention from the phenomena of thoughts. You'll see that we can actually not pay attention to anything or pay attention to the subjectivity. And then as we figure this out, as we see more and more often that I can just have my attention open, we'll find this deep sense of freedom. So let's start with our eyes open again, and just pick any object in the room that you're sitting in. Any object at all. Doesn't matter. It could be something, an animal, it could be a human being, it could be a supposedly inanimate object. And as your eyes are looking at that object, just become aware of the space, the empty space around that object. So my eyes are looking at this laptop now that I'm using, and my attention is aware that there's empty space all around it. I don't need my physical eyes to notice the empty space because it's invisible anyway and intangible. So my eyes are doing one thing and my attention is doing something else. So we're unhooking attention from what the senses are doing. Normally our attention just follows along with wherever our senses go. So pick another object in the room that you're sitting in. You can use your own body. If you look at your body, your eyes see your body, and you can be aware of the empty space around your body. Again, we're just proving experientially that my attention, awareness can be just aware. I'm just noticing the emptiness around an object. First, it's easier to notice an object and then notice the space around it, and that's okay. But to recognize consciously that you're using two different faculties there. My senses are looking at the object, but my attention is looking at the emptiness around it. So just to recognize then that you don't have to automatically have the two things functioning together. It actually feels quite nice to just notice the space around an object. And one of the questions that's come many times since I did that satsang last week about zooming in and out, it's totally normal that it seems more challenging to do this with thoughts. Let's do it first of all with physical objects. Let's prove to ourselves, let's convince ourselves that I can look at this thing with my eyes. My eyes can see a physical object, and my attention can be on something completely different. My attention is noticing the space between my hand and the laptop. So your senses can look at everything, your eyes, your ears, and your attention can be focused on the emptiness, the nothingness, the empty space, the spaciousness. So if we prove that to ourselves time and time again, and then go to try to apply this to the mind, we'll be going with that conviction that my attention doesn't have to go with what's moving and changing. That's what my senses are for. And there's a whole world of difference between I have to pay attention to thoughts, and thoughts are just happening inside me. Actually, when we pay attention to something, and again, I'm not talking about looking at it. If I look at my hand with my physical eyes and my attention's on the empty space around my hand, it's going to be very hard to form a thought after a while. If instead I pay attention to my hand, my mind has to start thinking, I've got more wrinkles than last time I did this exercise. And, a few more years have gone since, and I'm getting older, and why is my skin doing, and all the things it does. And you can practice. You zoom in and really begin to look at something. Your mind has to think about it. It has to. Because you're saying to your mind, this is an important thing. I've zoomed everything into this particular thing. And mind starts to think about what it's thinking about. So our attention's open, even though our senses are looking at things, noticing things. We can't really think too long about anything. You just need to prove this to yourself again and again. Let's do it one more time together here. So again, pick another object in the room. Or this time, let's pick a sound. Maybe you can hear another sound. So right now I can hear my words. And Claire is across the other side of the room. I can very subtly hear the noise of her laptop, very subtly. I can hear the heating pipes clanking. I can hear a bird ever so slightly chirping. But if I notice the noise of the bird chirping, and notice that I don't have to pay attention to it. It's just being heard, the vibrations coming in through my ears. So any sound at all, or if you find it easier picking an object and noticing the space around it, do that. It's okay. Or you can hear a sound and notice the silence it's appearing in. You can only hear my words because they're contrasting against the silence that's continuous. You can only notice thoughts because they're intermittent, seemingly breaking this silence. So awakening happens spontaneously, effortlessly, when we really come to see that I don't have to pay attention to anything at all. That doesn't mean I'm going to drive my car with my eyes closed, of course. I'm not meaning that. It's just to separate that my attention and my senses don't have to be slavishly hooked together, continuously always functioning together. We're just starting to do this. My attention can rest in an open way where I'm paying attention to the noumenon, the self, the consciousness, that which is not a thing, the empty space around an object. And as you do this, you're going to start to recognize that you can see the empty space between two objects, and then a whole room full of objects. It will just widen on its own. Hang on a minute. Every object in this room is appearing in empty space. And then even bigger than that, actually the room itself is appearing in empty space. As you practice like this, eventually the whole universe comes into view. But if you let that happen by itself, just for now, just notice that you can perceive the emptiness around an object already. Not with your eyes. You can't see something that's invisible with your eyes anyway. Right now, you know that there's empty space in the room that you're sitting in. How are you recognizing that? You can't see it. It's not visible. You can't touch it. It's not tangible. It's certainly not audible like these words. Already, some other faculty of attention, you're noticing it. So as you start to really get this fundamental principle of meditation, my attention can be steered, trained, brought back to the emptiness. And it doesn't have to move every time and contract around an object of thought every time mind thinks. Imagine the effect of that, you're sat there in meditation, you're actually finally in some deep peace. Finally, you're feeling some quietness and peace. And the mind talks. And it makes no difference at all. The mind talks about how much progress you're making in meditation. And off we go again. Oh, we pay attention to those thoughts because they feel better. So we're just unhooking attention from the mind itself. Mind is just a movement, like raindrops falling out of the sky. Thoughts fall out of the self, the awareness, and they last for as long as they last, and then they vanish. Why do we give them such priority treatment? Where do we upgrade them to first class phenomena, you know? And again, I'm not against thoughts. We just want to come to a point where we treat them equally like any other phenomena. And then freedom happens spontaneously as you realize deeply and experientially, like we've done today, I don't have to pay attention to anything. I can walk through my whole life as I practice this, with my attention just resting on the emptiness in which the objects are appearing. My senses, my body, and my mind will all function quite adequately by themselves. In fact, even more efficiently. The only difference is we won't be suffering because we're not paying attention to stuff, to thoughts. It's like standing, sitting in a helicopter about, hovering above a stadium full of 70,000 people, really trying to see the one guy sat in the front row without any binoculars or anything, just like really trying to, it's hard. And instead you just open your attention and whatever moves then moves by itself. So the understanding is I don't have to pay attention to phenomena of thought. They'll come and go anyway. Practice this with visible objects that you can see with your eyes first until you really get it. Really, I don't have to do that thing that I always do. And then you'll be able to do it with emotions and subtle objects like emotions and thoughts and perceptions, sensations that go on inside the body. And you'll notice that your eyes can look at another human being and your attention can just be aware of the space around their body. You watch how that changes how they behave. You watch how that changes how they feel even. It will influence them. They'll feel more peaceful. They'll feel happier. So let's just spend 5 or 10 minutes practicing this now, and then I'll read some questions that have been sent in. So with our eyes open and trying just for 5 or 10 minutes not to drift off, just pick an object in the room. Gently notice that you can see it with your eyes and that you can notice the empty space around it. And just let's be super aware how long you pay attention to that empty space. I'm aware of the space, I'm aware of the space, I'm aware of the space, I'm aware. Oh, gone back to thoughts again. I'm aware of the space. At some point, your mind will start to comment on this. You're doing really well at this. You're getting this more than you did last week. I don't get what she's saying today. I understood it last week, but now I'm confused. Commentary on your progress on this. Just coming back to the space around an object in the room. Or if there's 2 objects close together, you can notice the space between them. whichever you feel most comfortable with. And then just noticing that habitually, somehow, we go back to paying attention to thoughts. We're not going to judge ourselves when we recognize that that's happened, because that's just more paying attention to judgmental thoughts. Just bringing your attention back again. Pick an object, any object, and notice the space around it. You don't have to stare or strain your eyes. You can blink as normal, all of that. Notice how your body responds when attention's noticing the empty space. Notice how your mind inherently begins to quieten down. Begin to see that thoughts are generated by paying attention to something. And as you pay attention to nothingness, you begin to have a different experience. We call this zooming out, just bringing attention back to this open stance, where you're not paying attention to anything. There's just awareness. Noticing the empty space. And if you want to, you can close your eyes, notice the empty space around your body. You don't need your eyes open to see it, just noticing. I can perceive the empty space around my body. And my body begins to relax when I do that. Your body takes its cue from where your attention is. So whatever object you're noticing, you notice the space around it. Proving to ourselves right now that attention doesn't have to go with thoughts. You don't have to think about things. Just checking, have you zoomed back in? Have you started thinking? Can you zoom back out again? Notice the empty space around an object. No judgment, just habit. Noticing the empty space with your eyes open or closed. There's my body, there's space all around it. And we're just making a new habit here. Attention prefers to rest like this. It wants to be open. It's just this one idea that I have to pay attention to thoughts. So whatever your experience there, you probably found that your attention habitually went back to thoughts, especially if you practice this on your own. And it's okay. It's just the force of habit. But once you start to realize that you have a choice, that attention is something different to what the senses are doing, completely different, then you might start to feel more empowered. And you'll just begin to notice the thoughts that feel really important to pay attention to. Our mind says, I have to pay attention to these thoughts because they're thinking about this problem that needs fixing in my life. If I don't think about this problem that needs fixing in my life, it'll never get resolved. In actuality, because I'm thinking about this problem in my life, this problem is in my life. They're one and the same thing. Inner thoughts about the issue and the issue, outer, same, one thing. So as I unhook my attention from the thoughts about this person or this thing, and I just notice it, the thing has to change too, has to resolve. So I'd really urge you just to, whichever way you feel most natural, with your eyes open or closed, just to practice what we've done today. Prove to yourself, because there's no point me telling you only, because otherwise it's just going to be more knowledge in your head. But experiencing directly that I can be watching nothingness with my attention and watching something with my eyes, that can become my continuous, effortless, permanent mode of being just by practicing this. That's what all awakened beings have done. They just listen. They don't listen to anything in particular. They're just aware. There's just awareness. There's no thing to be aware of in the end. The end point of meditation then is when we've come to prefer resting attention this way so much. It feels so good in the body as it builds, as we get used to it. Peace, quietness, contentment, satisfaction. And then love and joy, and then bliss. It becomes more and more continuous as we're not hemorrhaging energy paying attention to these thoughts. And then paying attention to thoughts just begets more thoughts and more thoughts and more thoughts. And then there's more to pay attention to, and we're exhausted by the end of the day. Thoughts about how to fix a problem can never fix a problem. The mind doesn't know that, so it keeps thinking. It needs you to unhook your attention from it. Okay, so I will read a couple of questions that have been sent in. And if anybody would like to ask a question here today, feel free to raise your hand. We'll take up to 2 or 3. This one says, a general question about emotions and locating feelings. What are the best ways to identify an emotion when it's not obvious in the moment? So with regard to overeating, in your core teachings video and in the renunciation video, you mentioned that we believe there is a general lack when we want or need something. Everything you say makes sense and I resonate with it all. However, in the moment, at my kitchen counter, that flies out of the window along with the will to live. So what do I do in that moment when I'm overeating? And I'm literally talking from my own experience here. As with everything I'm talking about, I can see that my perception of lack is making me feel some negative emotion inside. There's not enough of something. And I get that. Experientially, I get that. And that when I feel peaceful and joyful, I don't even want to overeat. It's only when I'm feeling some kind of lack inside, that's when this happens. And then when I go to the refrigerator, I completely forget that. Or when I go in the kitchen where the food is. So what do you do then? I think that's what you're asking here. What do you do when actually it's happening? Well, there's nothing actually you can do in that moment quite often, is there? For me, I'd have gone in the kitchen, I'd have got something to eat, I'd have eaten it, and I'd come back in here and sat back down again before I'd even realized that I'd moved off the sofa. Like in some kind of trance or something, not even aware that the body was moving again. Because I didn't want to pay attention to that, to see it. So what you can do is you can intend to become more aware of when this is happening, non-judgmentally, of course. You can intend to see when your body's getting up to do that. And then in that moment, you have that choice then whether to continue that movement or not. But if you're not aware until after you've sat back down, there's nothing you can do about that then, is there? And if you let that one go, okay, that's the way it was that time. And then next time I'd like to, just a gentle intention, next time it happens, I'd like to be aware that it's happening. And usually the reason we're not aware loops back around to this emotion. There's some emotion that we don't want to feel, and that's why we kind of zone out while that's occurring. Just gently asking again, what is it that I don't want to feel here on some level? What am I turning away from? And then you can come back to some clarity in that. For me, it was usually shame or unworthiness. You know, if I was awakened, you know, I would have overcome this pattern by now. But actually, can change that to, because I'm awakening, I'm actually becoming more aware of this pattern that now can be resolved. So, okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, this one says, I'll come to you in a minute, Robin. How do I stop overeating behavior once I've started? I'm thinking about making myself a little postcard and hiding it in a cupboard. And next time I stand in my kitchen and wonder what to look for next with the words, I want this, fill in the blank. Is it really true? As I understand it, I just keep asking until the feeling subsides. I've tried to sit quietly and induce the same feeling I have just before I overeat, and I can't. I just can't seem to. Is there anything you can suggest I do when I'm not gripped by the urge to help in the matter too? Many thanks for your patience and your teachings. I'm blown away by truth. So as I said before, same thing. If it's already started and you're not aware that you're already on the move to get something, not a lot you can do about it. But your intention is powerful. Recognize there must be some desire not to see it on some level. And then you can counteract that with an intention to actually start to become aware of it. In terms of what to do when it's not happening, for me, and this is what worked for me, was to look at why am I overeating in the first place? And for me, it came down to some kind of sense of nourishing myself, treating myself, giving myself something, a nicer experience than I was currently feeling. So if I eat something, especially something sweet, I get this momentary nice experience. And looking at the idea behind that I'll feel better if I eat something sweet. And I just began to really examine that thought. Is that actually true? Meaning, do I actually feel better when I eat something that I don't really want or need, but it just tastes nice? When I actually looked at what was going on, there was this guilt and this frustration, intense anger, shame, all going on while I was eating this thing. So it wasn't actually even making me feel. I couldn't even enjoy the thing I was eating because I knew that it was part of this whole cycle of shame and everything. So if if you can look at it in advance and look at what do you think you're getting when you do it, and are you actually getting that? Begin to see the uselessness of this mechanism that's not actually working to give me comfort or nourishment. It's actually bringing more negative emotion. You look at that non-judgmentally and begin to say, well, this thing that the mind says is going to make me feel better isn't actually doing that. And then you just watch it like that. It begins to fall away. It's very, very common. It's a subject that's come up several times and twice here. So, and many people turn to food as a source of comfort. But is it really comfort when you're doing it involuntarily like that? Or is it just something else to punish yourself about? Just seeing that it's not actually doing what we think it is. You begin to be able to step away from it, spiritually and literally. So, Robin, when you're ready.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
When I meet with somebody, I choose to be open with them. I choose to share what I'm feeling and thinking openly and to connect with that person. But sometimes the person I'm talking to does not like what I'm saying or does not accept me. And then there's a feeling of hurt that arises. And then there's a tendency on my part to sort of want to withdraw, to not be so open the next time. And I know that intellectually, if I accept everyone and everything, then there is no hurt, but still this pattern continues. How should I deal with it?
Let me ask you this first. How do you know that some people don't accept you or like you?
Well, I'm interpreting that because of how they're responding to what I'm saying.
So let's be clear then that they don't like what you're saying, rather than your mind is automatically assuming that they don't like you, because the separate sense of someone is it takes ownership of thoughts, words, and actions, so that if you disagree with something I'm saying, it feels like you're disagreeing with me. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. So I'm interpreting their disagreement with what I'm saying as a non-acceptance or rejection of myself personally. Is that correct?
Yeah. So once you see that, it becomes easier in itself. It's like, okay, maybe it's actually just a difference of opinion here. Everyone's got their own perspective, etc. But taking it one step further than that, if you want to, is if I think they don't like me, then it can only be a reflection of the fact that I don't like me. Because that person that I think is rejecting me is me. And they're showing me that I still, on some level at least, don't like myself. It's not an easy one to accept. But if you can bring a willingness to, could I still be rejecting my own self somewhere inside? Out of habit, of course, but a prevalent habit nonetheless that we all have.
Yeah, I can see that, Helen, and I'm aware of that, and I've worked with that because I'm aware of that pattern that I don't like myself. So, but
Have you ever met yourself?
have I ever met myself? Meaning?
Have you ever actually just experienced you without thinking about you?
mean, look, as you're saying this, I'm getting the image of, like the Louise Hay practice where you look at yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you. That's what's coming up in my mind as you say this.
And let's be maybe it'd be easy to say when I was at this point in my own awakening, I realized I had all these negative opinions. On the best day, I just slightly disliked myself. On the worst day, I absolutely hated myself. And I was so convinced that that was true, that what I thought was true. And it was actually quite shocking to realize that all of my evidence, the fact that I wasn't good enough, wasn't likable, etc., was from what I think about myself. And that I'd never actually looked at myself without the filter of thoughts in mind. So this powerful question came, what do I actually know about myself if I don't think? If I don't, of course, mind might be thinking, but if I don't use thoughts as a reference point and the resulting emotions that come from those thoughts. So I'll ask you this, what do you actually know about yourself if you don't think about yourself?
Nothing.
So do you still dislike yourself? Then can you dislike yourself? From there.
No, I can't dislike myself if I'm nothing.
And what does happen if you don't know anything about yourself at all? How do you feel then?
Peaceful, relaxing.
Yeah. So can you see now maybe clearer what I mean when I say you've never really met yourself without looking through the mind at yourself?
I've never met myself without thoughts.
Yeah. And who are you without those thoughts? If those thoughts aren't used as a and the resulting experiences, the reflections in other people, like we started this with. If I don't count the experiences I've had, which have all been reflections of what I think about myself, and I don't look through the mind just for a moment, and I actually ask, who am I, without any thought being used as evidence or whatever. We come to
Without
this
thoughts,
stunning
I'm just
flip.
space.
Say again, sorry.
Without thoughts, I'm just space. I'm just openness.
Yeah. And do you like yourself like that?
Yes, it feels good.
Anything to improve there?
Not really.
Not at all, right? You've been amazingly brave here, and I'm sure you're helping absolutely everyone right now here by bringing this up. So it's just to be honest, right? I don't actually know myself. I've never met myself consistently without looking through the mind. And what's it like when I don't do that? Even now, let's take it one step further. Just look at your mind and body as they actually are without looking through the filter of mind. This is just a body here, right? There's just a body and there's thoughts.
Yeah. It's just a body.
Yeah.
Just space.
Nothing to dislike there either, is there?
That's true.
So it's your choice then now. Now that you know you haven't really met yourself and your mind isn't, well, you have met yourself now, but your mind isn't the best and most reliable opinion to consult about whether you're good enough or not. That's all we're saying, isn't it? Your mind can't really see clearly, but you can.
Yes.
So you value this more than other people's opinions, which are echoes of what mind thinks. You value this more, you meet yourself directly, you value that more than you value your mind's opinions. Don't make the mind wrong. Just, okay, I can see it. Every time I look through that mechanism, it's always going to look like I need to improve myself.
Yeah, this feels better.
And the more you do it, the more you fall utterly in love with yourself, utterly besotted, obsessed. And, not in an ego way, but just, wow, there's never been anything really that I needed to fix about me. And then other people have to begin to reflect that to you instead of reflecting what your mind thinks.
I would like to add one thing, Helen. What I just asked you, I asked this because in the Sangha a few hours ago, one of the other members asked me to ask you this question, and I wasn't that keen to ask. But what I'm feeling right now, what we did in this Sangha was something from your website about there's only one questioner, there's only one answer. There are not separate questioners. And so this person asked me to ask this question, which is also my question and is everyone's question. So I think how you've just responded and what's just happened now is a perfect example of
There's the oneness.
There's just the oneness there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You could tell from my answer that I've had to do this too, We all spend as long as we spend trying to fix ourselves from some wrong image that comes through perceiving ourselves through the mind, and mind's never going to be able to see you clearly. Only you can. So as you get that, it becomes a simple choice of if I'm suffering, I'm looking through the mind right now at something, at myself or someone else. If I'm not suffering, I'm just actually directly being with myself.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you for asking that. So we'll go to Lena and then Jeff, and then we'll leave it for today. So Lena, when you're ready.
Hello, Helen. Hello,
Hi.
everyone. Sorry, I won't turn on my camera. It's very early here.
No worries.
It was such profound and deep answer. Thank you, Robin, for asking that, and thank you, Helen, for answering, because actually I'm on the opposite side. I'm the person who can disagree, and I never ever thought that the other people can think that I disprove them or I don't like them. I always consider that it's just a different opinion. I even cannot for 1 second imagine the world with one opinion. How it would be, we would be die from boredness. I would say something and 1,000 people, yes, Lena, correct. And how? To me, the world is unfunctional by this way. So because I always say what I think, and I actually expect something interesting discussion happen. So actually, maybe I will ask a different question, Helen. Maybe can you help me to soften my answer, which is very often quite opposite from the other people.
And there's nothing wrong with having a different opinion, of course, but it just becomes clearer that everyone is listening to everyone through the filter of mind, which is we're listening through this filter that we're not good enough. So that's what we're hearing back from, and one of the most startling things when my awakening first really took root was the recognition that nobody could actually hear me, what I was saying. It was quite startling. Or that they hear it and then they take it and do something else with it completely. And I had several really vivid experiences where someone took the exact opposite meaning of what I'd meant. And I was like, how on earth, I didn't say this to them out loud, but how on earth could they get a total 180 when I'm saying that I agree with them and like them, and their mind just took it and had to make it into the exact opposite, because mind is collecting evidence of what we believe to be true, filtering out what we don't agree with, we don't remember. So just listening and commenting from that place of compassion, then, where we're aware that everyone's listening through their filters and of their beliefs. And it really is amazing that human relationships work at all sometimes when you get that, you know. So wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. But my question was different. I was just amazed with your answer. My question is this. Recently, I got a call to come back to my craft. And I did it all my life, and I tremendously enjoyed it. Then I stopped for like around 10 years, and I did different things. I did yoga, I did Tai Chi, I did Argentine tango. So, I mean, I was always busy. I always enjoyed doing something, but I didn't do craft. And suddenly I just felt that I wanted, and I submerged myself again into it. And I was so happy, especially I'm still happy. You said that art or craft doesn't matter what is that dance. It's all pure noumenon, and I was so happy. However, what I noticed, I'm doing like for maybe around month. However, I noticed that it's bringing me away from practicing, from intention, from concentration, because basically
Is it bringing you away, or is it joy in action?
It's joy, it's pure joy, but it seems to me I submerge myself not in noumenon as I was practicing before. For example, I was practicing, I love to be being, I love to be silence.
So maybe that practicing has already begun to bear fruit. So if you look at your life now without the idea of how much you should be practicing spiritually, is there a problem?
Can you repeat again?
Yeah, no worries. So if you look at now your life, some of it you're spending in spiritual practice, some of it you're spending doing whatever craft, having all the fun and joy. If you just let go of the idea that you should be practicing for so much amount of time, is there a problem?
I actually wanted to practice all my free time. Even not only free time, all my time, but my craft is so powerful because I don't do it for some like for money, for benefit. I'm doing it just for joy.
Why do you want to practice all your free time? Might seem like a strange question, but let's go.
No, it's not straight. Wonderful question. Actually, it's also joy. I love to be being, just be. I love to be just silence, and I physically feel the construction and tension when I concentrate on a thought.
So, when you're doing your craft, aren't you just being?
It's just pure joy, yes.
So there's meditation right there. I'm just being. I'm just being. I'm not doing this for any other reason than it's fun. I'm just being.
Oh, thank you. Because I started to, and I repeat a couple of times, I was happy. So I was so submerging myself, and then I started to feel that it's bringing me away, and it's starting to bring me, not upset, kind of disappointment, and I didn't know what to do.
It's good to check, is this distracting me from my path, or is this actually the outcome of my spiritual work, that the things that I end up doing are just more joyful anyway. And in even mundane things eventually become joyful because they're not mundane. They're all just you. And the body's doing whatever it's doing. And the practice, the meditation moves more from something that you're doing in a scheduled way, although that continues, to more of an informal, I'm just having so much fun or joy in my life. Or I'm just doing this thing, I'm going to this place and I'm just peaceful. I'm literally being that while I do this thing.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you, Helen. Because I remember you were talking with a girl and she was actually had the opposite. She lost interest in her art and she was upset about it. And I'm sitting enjoying my craft and I think, oh my God, that girl was lost and was upset. I'm having my passion and I'm upset. Where is the truth?
It's very common that we'll lose interest in those things for a while because we have to kind of put so much focus and attention on recognizing who we really are. But as we start to get more established in that, even a little bit, naturally that's going to want to pour out as joyous experiences. And here's one of them for you. Some people might love to cook or play an instrument or walk the dog or go to the movies or whatever it is, but it's done in the same, it's just kind of joyful to experience. That is the awakened state. Whatever's going on is just going on and I'm happy.
Oh, thank you so much, because it's exactly going into the tune. How I mentioned, I didn't think about that. It just literally, I woke up and I think I want it. It came from nowhere and I'm just following it. But then I started to doubt. Thank you for clarifying the doubt. Now I'm free. I feel even more joy.
Yeah. Unless you just begin to notice that mind has to make an issue out of everything. So
exactly.
my practice is being really successful and my mind's going, oh my God, there's something going wrong. You know, that's what it does, right? All the time. So you just catch it more and more like, actually, is that really what's going on? Wonderful. Thank you, Lena.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Last but not least, Jeff.
Oops. Hey there. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Well, a couple things. Firstly, just want to say thank you. I'm really loving this. I just joined a couple months ago, but I'm really loving this group and your teaching, and I just feel a lot of gratitude. So thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
So a couple things. So one, this is less interesting, but I just wanted to point it out. So I had this wisdom tooth pulled today, and it was really interesting. I mean, it wasn't interesting. It's interesting now. But I missed most of the satsang. I missed most of the satsang because I swallowed something, Helen, and I'm telling you, the pain. It went on for about 30 or 40 minutes, and it was just like I was trying. Like, can I be with this pain? It was like a 9 out of 10 for a man. That's like that just told me.
We're getting into that conversation. Yeah.
No. The dentist told me that the women have a much higher threshold for pain than men do.
I'm just going to diplomatically step back.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm at a 9, but for me, it was just like, there was it just took up all my awareness.
Yeah.
All my screen was just trying to get to the next moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I won't get too graphic, but a lot of stuff was going on. And I just wanted to mention that was interesting. At least there was thought about it, like kind of afterwards. But my question really is, unfortunately not, I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record, Helen, but
that's okay.
There's a deeper, thank you, a deeper question here, which is that I so appreciate you sharing your own experience, your human experience. I can't even tell you how much it means. And you mentioned something today that really struck me, which was that you said, when I'm meeting new people, in person, I can't remember what you said exactly, but I meet them individually, or I still get nervous and I don't let that stop me. And it's been interesting, as you know, I've been bugging you about, my questions about doing this contemplation. And it just could be that, I mean, the two things. So comment number one is, yeah, as I've told you before, I love the contemplation. I don't see the triggering response going down. But I'm also kind of maybe on a deeper level going, to myself, why am I so fixated on this fear as like, it's almost like an obsession. I have to get rid of the fear. And so there's something deeper, like I could, I'd rather not have be triggered a lot with fear, but I could see myself, I don't let it stop me anyway, but I could see myself having a different relationship to it. So my question, sorry for being so wordy, is like,
You're
in
not being worthy,
contemplation.
you're saying exactly. There's no need to apologize. Just
Oh,
express
thank
yourself.
you. Thank you. Well, I'll just say this. I would love some more help to know what I'm aiming towards, like, because I can see this expectation of like the trigger response going down as the contemplation goes deeper. And I don't see that. But I do see the possibility of what you're talking about, which is, okay, I still get nervous. I still get, you're talking about clearing your throat. That still happens, but you're really kind of at peace with it. And
It's kind of cute actually now. It's like if it never actually goes, it's okay. I'd like it if it did, but and maybe the trigger response is not the fear that you're talking about. Maybe the trigger response that's causing, for want of a better word, all of this for you is the urge that it would go. So that the fear would disappear. So this urge, this desire, these thoughts about the fear. Can you see that?
absolutely, the fearful thoughts and the fearful feelings, don't like them.
Yeah. And you never will, right? That's the thing I didn't get for a long time. I imagine this amazing shiny place called awakening where I'd be like, yes, fear, I've really missed you, I'm glad you're back, something like that, and it just doesn't exist, so there's always going to be something that arises with fear that says, ew, I don't want this. And if you take an analogy of, let's say you're getting really good at meditation and you're just sitting in a lot of peace every day, and new neighbor moves in next door and they're learning to play the drums, and you're just sitting down to meditate and all you can hear is just, this thing going on. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is to go knock on the door. And of course, in the real world you might do, but just in terms of this analogy, you want the noise to stop so that you can meditate deeper. It's not disturbing you. But after a while, spiritually speaking, the actual added noise helps you come to a deeper place of meditation where you can get into that peace and stillness and silence, even though the noise is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what the fear is giving you. It's actually helping you understand, even today with the physical pain, you were saying there was just this tiny sliver of awareness and a lot filling your experience of what you were aware of, the physical pain and, the thoughts around it and everything. And without the physical pain and the fear, we wouldn't have this impetus to go deeper into our own self. So it was ironically for me when I actually didn't care anymore if the body was scared, because I was just walking around doing my food shopping, taking the kids to school, and the body was kind of really scared, and it was a couple of days where it was going on like that. Every now and again, it'd be like, wow, it's still here. Wow, it's still here. And that's when it finally kind of shifted, because I didn't need it. I wanted it to go, but I didn't need it to go. And it's very different because I was just being myself anyway, just getting on with my life. Yeah.
So can you just weave contemplation into that for a second? Because I'm using contemplation.
Do I really need this to go? Why do I really want this to go?
Oh, I was asking something different, meaning like the aim of contemplation as it relates to those kinds of things.
Just do a question is going to allow yourself to, like we were doing in the meditation earlier, we can ask a question also that opens the attention up from, instead of paying attention to this one thought that I need this to go, the question is going to open attention up to where you realize, actually, I don't actually need it to go. I think I need it to go. Because somewhere inside, we've all got this assumption that I can only be peaceful when the fear goes. Or something like that, right?
Yeah. That's it. I think that's it. Yeah.
And in fact, maybe it's a total 180. Maybe I can be more peaceful while the fear is here because I'm really called to dig deeper inside myself and stretch my spiritual muscle a bit, in terms of, am I actually really affected by this fear? My body is completely, but am I? And we've got compassion for the body, but just for the sake of clarity, am I actually suffering from this fear or this physical pain?
Right.
And there's an idea, if you believe you are, then of course you feel you need to get rid of that before you can feel okay again.
It's interesting because before when the anesthesia wore off, I said, okay, I know it's coming. And I know that, unless it's something severe, it can't really hurt me.
Yeah.
The pain. In other words, it's a form of experience or sensation. It wasn't like that when it was happening. Helen, it was like, oh man, I just got to make it through this moment.
Yeah.
But
the pain was there when the anesthesia was there as well, wasn't it? You just didn't care about it in the same way. You weren't interacting with it in the same way.
Pain was there.
The pain was there. The nerves were going, this hurts, in your mouth. This hurts, this hurts. But the message wasn't getting to your brain. The pain was there.
Yeah.
But the message isn't getting to the brain because of the anesthesia. So that the message is, this is hurting me. I'm in pain. That's the thought that we're believing in that moment, because we're identifying as the body, which there is pain in the body. We're not negating that. But if we don't buy this idea, or if we contemplate, question this idea, is it actually affecting me? Whether we're talking about physical pain, fear, anything, right? And then you come to very quickly an understanding, a realization.
So I guess just, sorry, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, from there, then we don't need it to go because it's not affecting me.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was kind of summarizing. In other words, the contemplation, as I'm understanding you talk about it now, it's more like opening. It's kind of a zooming out of the mind, potential of the mind, and relating to the belief or whatever, and the experience of the belief in a different way.
As
and
the
as you were
infinite
saying,
self, right? When I look at this thought as the infinite self, it's just so obviously not true. When I look at it as a separate being, it's very true, and I experience it as it being extraordinarily true. And I want the fear to go, but it can't go because I need it to go, because it's affecting me. Because I'm sure it's affecting me, I have to keep experiencing that over and over and over, and then it can never actually go. When I finally see this isn't really affecting me, the emptiness, the consciousness, then I'm not pushing against it because I don't need it to go, and then it can finally evaporate.
Yeah, wow, getting a little bit of a hit on that.
For me, the fear never really left until I tried every which way I could as a someone to get rid of it. Everything, every spiritual thing I'd ever learned, ever, I'm just going to be with this, so that it goes away. I'm going to meditate my way out of this. I'm going to surrender to it. and eventually, finally, nothing worked.
Yeah, I think I'm doing that with contemplation. I'm contemplating my way out of it.
Yeah, exactly. We all do.
But
we all do.
Right, but as a separate, vulnerable me,
so that it goes away.
Is that really contemplation? But I hear you. Like, it really is a kind of a. I understand the word awakening does really fit here. It's kind of a waking up.
Yeah.
So
So
thank you.
it's not the spiritual tool such as contemplation, it's where we're doing it from or who we're doing it as. That's the difference, isn't it?
It's amazing, Helen. I just finished with it. I was like, it's amazing when I hear you say this. I can feel the truth of it. And also, as the noumenon, I can feel it, and it's way beyond, the body's inside of it, but the body's just all a tingle.
Yeah.
It's just all, it's really cool.
Because your body's
I have
going,
this,
yeah, that's true. It's affecting me, the body says, but it's not affecting you. And the body goes, yeah, that's true. And you can hear it singing. You feel it kind of resonating with that, right? Celebrating. Because your body
absolutely.
is recognizing the truth of what we just realized. As it suffers from the untruth, it feels tight and contracted around this idea that it's affecting you, this pain or this fear. So it's a tricky one because pain, physical pain is so in your face, isn't it? And it's a relentless teacher. It's like the worst Zen teacher ever, isn't it? It's but it forces us to kind of come to this understanding that there's some place inside me that isn't affected and doesn't need it to go. And then you have that kind of permanent effect of an anesthesia. It's there, but I don't have to push against it. Whatever it is different, but it could be fear or pain or shame or whatever.
Yeah. So nice. I can really feel that.
Good. Enjoy it.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
it.
Yeah. Thank you, Helen.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Good to talk to you. Okay. Wonderful. So, wow, some very brave sharing today again, and I'm always touched by the depth of sharing and courage and bravery of everyone to open up and ask questions like this, because it's not easy, or to bring something forward, especially when our mind is saying, I should know this already, or should have figured this out, or whatever it's saying. So thank you for that. And just remains to say thank you and namaste.